The scrapyard on Brick Station reeked of rust, ozone, and broken dreams. Kalen Dross kicked at a twisted piece of hull plating as he surveyed the graveyard of starships, his breath visible in the thin, recycled air. 10 credits, that was all he had left to his name, barely enough for a meal, let alone passage off this backwater trading post. "You sure about this one, Dross?" Thorne's gravelly voice carried across the debris field. The scrapyard owner was a mountain of a man, cybernetic arm gleaming dully as he gestured toward the hulking wreck dominating the far corner of his yard. "That's a Jalari warship. Real alien tech, not some human knockoff. Course, it's deader than a comet's core." Kalen approached the vessel, his engineer's eye taking in the massive rent along its starboard hull, the scorched armor plating, the dark viewports that stared out like dead eyes. The ship was easily 3 times the size of any human frigate he'd worked on, its organic curves and flowing lines distinctly non-human. Even in death, it possessed an alien beauty that made his pulse quicken. "What's the story?" he asked, running, his hand along the surprisingly warm hull metal. "Picked it up from a salvage crew about 6 months back. They found it drifting in the Veil Nebula. No life signs, no power. Crew figured it had been dead for decades, maybe longer. Thing is," Thorne's voice dropped to a whisper, "3 different buyers have walked away from it. Said it gave them the creeps. Bad dreams, cold spots, weird noises at night." Kalen snorted. "Superstitious nonsense. It's just a ship. Maybe. But I'll tell you what, I'll let you have it for 10 credits. Just to get the cursed thing off my lot. 10 credits. Everything he had for a ship that could contain enough salvage to set him up for years. Even if half the systems were fried, Jalari Tech commanded premium prices on the black market. Kalen pulled out his credit chip, hands trembling slightly as he authorized the transfer. "Pleasure doing business," Thorne muttered, though he looked anything but pleased. "Docking Bay 7? And Dross? Don't come crying to me when you regret this." An hour later, Kalen stood before the ship's main airlock, portable power cell humming at his feet. The heavy door had taken 20 minutes to manually cycle, but finally groaned open with a hiss of stale air. Emergency lighting flickered to life as he stepped inside, casting eerie shadows. Along the organic-looking corridors, the ship's interior was a maze of flowing passages and chambers that seemed grown rather than built. Kalen moved carefully, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Battle damage was evident everywhere: blast holes and bulkheads, twisted support structures, sections of corridor completely collapsed. Yet beneath the destruction, he could sense the ship's former glory. This had been a vessel of war and beauty, a masterpiece of alien engineering. His scanner beeped softly, detecting faint energy readings deeper in the ship. Following the signal, Kalen descended through a maintenance shaft into what appeared to be a lower engineering section. Here, the damage was less severe, though debris still blocked many passages. The scanner's beeping grew more insistent as he squeezed through a gap between collapsed support beams. Beyond lay a small chamber. He almost missed its entrance, hidden behind a fall of ceiling panels. Inside, banks of strange alien consoles lined the walls, most dark and lifeless. But in the center of the room sat something that made Kalen's breath catch. A stasis pod, its crystalline surface fogged with condensation, glowed with a faint, pulsing light. And inside, Kalen dropped his scanner, rushing forward. Through the translucent material, he could see her, a figure unmistakably alien, yet undeniably feminine. Tall and lean, with skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, delicate features that were hauntingly beautiful despite their otherness. Her hair was silver white, flowing like liquid mercury around her shoulders. Even in stasis, she looked regal, powerful. The pod systems were failing. Warning lights blinked frantically along its base, and frost was forming on the inner surface. Without immediate intervention, whoever was inside would die. Kalen's hands moved without conscious thought, his engineering training taking over. He traced power conduits, identified failing components, jury-rigged connections from his portable power cell. The pod system stabilized momentarily. Then began the awakening sequence. As the crystalline lid began to iris open, Kalen stepped back, suddenly aware of what he'd done. He'd just awakened an alien warrior from a ship that had been presumed dead for decades. As the last of the stasis mist cleared, and those magnificent eyes fluttered open eyes like liquid starlight, he realized his life had just changed forever. The Zalari warrior's gaze found his, and in that moment, something stirred in the ship. Around them, lights flickered in distant corridors, and deep in the vessel's core, systems that had slept for years began to whisper back to life. Vela Soren's eyes snapped fully open, blazing with fury and confusion. Her hand moved like lightning, grasping Kalen's throat before he could react. Her grip was iron-strong despite her obvious weakness, and she hissed something in a musical language he didn't understand. Easy, easy. Kalen gasped, raising his hands peacefully. I'm not your enemy. I saved you. She studied his face with those impossible starlight eyes, then released him with a sound of disgust. Struggling to sit up in the pod, she spoke again in her alien tongue, and switched to heavily accented standard. Human. Why ... Why am I alive? Your stasis pod was failing. You would have died if I hadn't intervened. Kalen rubbed his throat, watching as she attempted to stand on unsteady legs. She was even more striking awake, tall and graceful, despite her weakness, wearing form-fitting armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal across her lithe frame. My ship, she whispered, eyes darting around the chamber. My crew? The pain in her voice made Kalen's chest tighten. I'm sorry. There's no one else. Just you. Vela's legs gave out, and Kalen caught her before she hit the floor. For a moment, she allowed herself to lean against him, her body trembling with grief and exhaustion. He could feel the heat radiating from her skin, smell something like cinnamon and starlight in her silver hair. The hegemony, she breathed. They came in force. We fought. I remember the boarding parties, the bridge exploding. Her fingers clutched at his jacket. How long? I don't know. The scrap dealer said the ship was found drifting months ago, but it could have been out there for years. She pulled away from him, straightening with visible effort. I am Vela Soren, battle commander of the Stellar Wind, guardian bonded to this vessel. You will tell me your name, human, and why you disturbed the tomb of my people. Kalen Dross. I'm a salvager, was a salvager. I bought your ship for scrap. He saw her face darken and quickly added, but that was before I knew about you. Everything's different now. A scavenger. Her lip curled with disdain. Come to pick the bones of the mighty. Before Kalen could respond, an alarm began wailing. Somewhere in the ship's depths, red emergency lights bathed the chamber as his portable scanner crackled to life with urgent beeps. Multiple contacts incoming, he read from the display. 3 ships, military configuration, moving fast. Vela's head snapped up. Pirates. They hunt the scrapyards, looking for easy prey. She tried to stand again, swaying dangerously. We must reach the bridge. You can barely walk. Let me. This is my ship. She snarled, then immediately softened. Her tone. But I will need your assistance. Together, they made their way through the damaged corridors, Veli leaning heavily on Kalen's shoulder. He could feel her strength gradually returning as they moved, her body somehow drawing energy from the ship itself. The emergency lighting grew brighter around them, and ventilation systems hummed to life. The ship responds to you, Kalen observed. We are bonded, she said simply. Commander and vessel, heart and soul, It has been sleeping, but now, ... She placed her palm against the wall panel, and it glowed softly under her touch. It remembers. The bridge was a disaster half. The consoles were destroyed. Support beams had collapsed across the command area, and the main view screen flickered with static. But as Vela settled into what remained of the captain's chair, systems began activating around them. "Weapons are offline," she reported, her hands dancing across controls that reformed themselves under her touch. "Shields at 15%. Engines ... barely functional." The view screen cleared, showing 3 sleek raider ships closing fast. Kalen recognized the design Corsair-class pirates, fast and heavily armed. "Attention derelict vessel." A harsh voice crackled through the com. "Prepare to be boarded. Resist and we'll space you." Vela's eyes blazed. "I am Vela Sorin of the Stellar Wind. You dare threaten a Guardian commander?" Mocking laughter answered her. "Zelari? Thought you freaks were all dead. Even better alien tech and a live specimen. Today's our lucky day, boys." The lead ship opened fire, plasma bolts slamming into their weakened shields. The bridge shook violently, sparks flying from damaged consoles. "Can you fly this thing?" Kalen shouted over the noise. "Not fight, but perhaps." Vela's hands moved frantically across her controls. "Kalen, I need you to reroute power from life support to the engines. Manually, the automated systems are too damaged." Without hesitation, Kalen crawled under the tactical station, his fingers finding the power conduits by feel. "Like this? Yes, more." The Stellar Wind lurched forward with unexpected speed, diving toward the asteroid field surrounding Brick's station. The pirates followed, their ships more maneuverable, but struggling to match their prey's suddenly erratic flight pattern. "There, hurting us," Vela said grimly as plasma fire bracketed them on both sides. "Into the mining zone." "The automated miners," Kalen realized. "If we can trigger them." Vela smiled for the first time, and it transformed her face completely. "You? Think like a warrior." Kalen Dross. Working together, they threaded the needle through the dormant mining platforms. At the critical moment, Kalen overloaded a power relay, sending a massive electrical surge through the asteroid field. The mining platforms activated simultaneously, lancing out with cutting beams and gravity nets. 2 of the pirate ships were caught immediately, their hulls sliced open by industrial lasers. The 3rd managed to break free, but limped away, no longer interested in a fight. In the sudden quiet that followed, Kalen and Vela found themselves staring at each other across the damaged bridge. She was breathing hard, a flush of excitement coloring her luminous skin. "Well fought," she said softly. "You too." He moved closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. "Your shoulder's bleeding." She looked down at the wound she'd sustained during the battle. A piece of shrapnel had torn through her armor. "It is nothing. Let me." He pulled a medical kit from his belt, gently parting the damaged armor. Her skin was warm under his fingers, and he felt her shiver at his touch. As he worked, cleaning and sealing the wound, neither of them spoke. But something had changed between them. The human scavenger and the alien warrior, thrown together by chance, had fought as one. And in that moment of shared triumph, the first fragile threads of trust began to form. "Thank you," she whispered. As he finished, "For saving me, for fighting beside me. Thank you for not spacing me when I touched your stasis pod." She laughed a sound like silver bells. "The night is young, Kalen Dross." Around them, the stellar wind hummed with renewed life, its systems responding to the bond forming between its guardian commander and the human who had awakened them both. 3 days into their journey toward the Terminus sector, Kalen discovered that living with a Zelari warrior was unlike anything he'd experienced. Vela moved through the ship like liquid grace, her presence bringing dormant systems online with each passing hour. What had been a dead hulk was becoming something magnificent again. Your people built ships differently than humans, he observed, watching her coax life from a damaged, environmental processor with nothing but touch and whispered words in her musical language. We grow them, she corrected, not looking up from her work. Each vessel is cultivated, nurtured, bonded to its guardian from the moment of its birth. The stellar wind and I have been together for 37 cycles. Kalen ran his hand along the corridor wall, feeling the subtle warmth beneath. The surface. It's alive? Semi-sentient. It feels, remembers, dreams in its way. Her expression darkened. It has been dreaming of death for too long. They'd established a routine of sorts. Kalen worked on the more mechanical systems engines, life support, artificial gravity, while Vela tended to what she called the ship's living systems. In the evenings, they shared meals in the restored galley, an elegant space with flowing walls and furniture that seemed to reshape itself for comfort. Tell me about your people, Kalen said as they ate something that tasted like spiced fruit, but had the texture of meat. The ship's food synthesizers had adapted to his human metabolism, another sign of its remarkable intelligence. Vela was quiet for a long moment, silver hair catching the soft light. We were explorers once, philosophers and artists. The hegemony called us a threat because we refused to submit to their expansion. They said we were too proud, too different to coexist with their vision of galactic order. How many ships did? You lose? All of them. Her voice was barely a whisper. The entire stellar fleet, over 300 vessels and 50,000 souls. We fought to the last, but they had numbers we could not match. Kalen reached across the table, covering her hand with his. Her skin was always warm. He'd noticed, like she carried some internal fire. I'm sorry. She turned her hand palm up, intertwining their fingers. The gesture seemed to surprise them both. You have kind hands, Kalendros, strong but gentle. Very different from my people. How so? Zalari males are more delicate, smaller. They stay home, tend the younglings, create art and music, while females fight and explore. She studied his face with curious eyes. Human males are warriors too. Some are. Others are engineers, artists, teachers. We don't divide roles by gender the way your people do. Interesting. Her thumb traced across his knuckles, sending unexpected warmth up his arm. You fight well for one who claims not to be a warrior. Their conversations grew longer each evening, sharing stories of their worlds, their dreams, their losses. Kalen learned that Vela had been the youngest battle commander in the fleet, that she'd bonded with the stellar wind when she was barely past adolescence. She learned that he'd grown up on a mining station, that his parents had died in a reactor accident when he was 16, that he'd been alone ever since. Perhaps that is why the ship accepts you, she mused one night as they sat on the observation deck, watching stars stream past. You understand solitude, abandonment. The stellar wind has been alone too. And now? She was quiet then. Now it sings again. Softly, but it sings. On the fourth day, Vela began teaching him basic combat techniques in the ship's training chamber. The room reconfigured itself into a practice arena, walls becoming padded surfaces, floor marking itself with geometric patterns. Your reflexes are good, she said, circling him with predatory grace. But you fight like you're fixing a machine, too much thinking, not enough feeling. She moved like water, striking at him with controlled force that still left bruises. But gradually, Kalen began to anticipate her movements, to respond with instinct rather than analysis. Better, she approved, as he managed to block a series of strikes. Now attack. He hesitated. I don't want to hurt you. You cannot. There was challenge in her voice, in the tilt of her head. Try. He lunged forward, as she flowed aside like smoke. But instead of countering, she guided his momentum, spinning him around so his back pressed against her chest, her arms encircling him. "Feel the ship's rhythm," she whispered in his ear, her breath warm against his neck. "Move with it, not against it." Kalen's heart hammered as he became aware of her body pressed against his, the curve of her breasts, the strength in her arms, the heat of her skin through their clothing. When she released him and stepped back, he turned to find her watching him with an intensity that made his mouth go dry. "Again," she said softly. This time when they sparred, there was something different in the air between them. Each contact lingered a heartbeat longer than necessary. When she swept his legs and he fell, she caught him, their faces inches apart. When he managed to pin her against the wall, she didn't immediately break free, her starlight eyes searching his face. "Vela," he breathed. She pushed him away gently. "We should rest. Tomorrow we reach the Helix Nebula." But that night, as Kalen lay in his quarters of space, the ship had literally grown for him, shaping walls and furnishings from its own substance. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, felt the memory of her touch. Unknown to him, Vela stood at her cabin's viewport, watching the stars and struggling with feelings she'd never expected to have for an alien, especially a human. The stellar wind hummed around her, its consciousness brushing against hers with what felt almost like amusement. "You approve?" she asked silently. The ship's response was warmth, acceptance, and something that felt remarkably like affection. Not just for her, but for the human who had awakened them both. In the depths of space, the hegemony listening post designated Omega-7 detected the energy signature of a Zalari warship moving through the outer systems. Admiral Korath received the report with cold satisfaction. "So," he murmured, studying the tactical display, "one of them survived after all. Deploy Hunter Squadron. I want that ship taken intact, and whoever's aboard brought to me alive." The hunt was beginning. The Helix Nebula burned with ethereal fire around them, its gas clouds painting space in shades of crimson and gold. Hidden within its electromagnetic maze, the stellar wind drifted silently as Vila studied the tactical display. 3 destroyer-class vessels, she reported, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Hegemony Hunter Squadron. They've been tracking us for days." Kalen leaned over her shoulder to study the screen, acutely aware of her nearness, the subtle scent of starlight and cinnamon that seemed to cling to her skin. "Can we outrun them?" "Not with our engines damaged. And they know these hunting grounds better than we do." Her fingers danced across the controls, bringing up a 3-dimensional map of the nebula. "But I know something they don't." She indicated a dense cluster of gas pockets near the nebula's heart. The Singing Graves, a ship's graveyard where the stellar winds create harmonic resonances. "My people used it as a hiding place during the war. It looks dangerous." "It is. The electromagnetic storms can fry electronics. The gravity wells shift without warning, and the harmonic frequencies can drive organic minds to madness." She turned to look at him, her starlight eyes intense. "But we are bonded to this ship in ways they cannot understand. The stellar wind will protect us." As if responding to her words, the ship shuddered gently, its living systems humming with anticipation. They made their approach carefully, using the nebula's interference to mask their movements. But as they neared the Singing Graves, proximity alarms began screaming. "They found us," Kalen said grimly, watching 3 red dots appear on the edge of their sensor range. "Hunter Captain Voss," a cold voice crackled through their communications. "By order of Admiral Korath, you will surrender your vessel and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with lethal force." Vila's lip curled with contempt. "Voss, I remember him a coward who prefers to attack civilians and wounded prey." She opened a channel. I am Vela Soren, Battle Commander of the Stellar Wind. Come and take me, if you can." The lead hunter ship opened fire immediately, crimson energy beams lancing through the nebula's glow. The stellar wind rolled aside with fluid grace, diving deeper into the electromagnetic storm. "They're trying to herd us away from the graves," Vela observed as the enemy ships spread into a hunting formation. "They know the dangers, too. Then we don't give them a choice." Kalen's hands flew over the engineering console, rerouting power from non-essential systems to boost their speed. The stellar wind responded like a living thing, its hull plates shifting to optimize their profile as they plunged into the graveyard's chaotic embrace. The first harmonic wave hit them like a physical blow, the ship's structure groaning as conflicting. Gravity fields tried to tear it apart, but the stellar wind held together, its living systems adapting in real time to the changing conditions behind them. The hunter ships followed more cautiously, their rigid military designs struggling against the nebula's chaos. One of them strayed too close to a gravity well and was crushed like an egg, its debris adding to the ancient collection. "Two left," Kalen reported, then cursed as weapons fire bracketed them on both sides. "They're coordinating their attack." A plasma bolt caught their port flank, tearing through already damaged armor. The ship lurched, throwing Vela against her console. Kalen saw blood bloom across her forehead where she'd struck the edge of her control panel. "I'm all right," she said before he could ask, wiping the blood away with the back of her hand. "But our shields are failing." The second hunter ship closed for the kill, its weapons charging for a final volley. Kalen saw death approaching and made a desperate choice. He threw himself across the bridge, tackling Vela away from her station. Just as the enemy's guns fired, the bridge exploded around them, consoles erupting in showers of sparks and flame. A piece of twisted metal, red-hot from the blast, caught Kalen across the chest and shoulder, burning through his jacket and into the flesh beneath. He screamed, rolling away from Vela as smoke and the smell of burning meat filled the air. "Kalen." Vela's voice seemed to come from very far away. He felt her hands on him, gentle but urgent, as she dragged him toward the emergency medical station. "Stay with me. Please, stay with me." The world went gray around the edges as she worked over him, her medical training taking over. Through the haze of pain, he was dimly aware of the ship fighting for itself, its automated systems engaging the enemy while its guardian commander tended to her wounded ally. "Why?" she whispered as she sealed his wounds with regenerative gel. "Why did you shield me?" "Because," he managed through gritted teeth. "Because I." Before he could finish, the ship shuddered as another plasma bolt found its mark. Alarms wailed, and the lights flickered ominously. "We're losing life support," Vela said, her face pale in the emergency lighting. "I have to get back to the controls." "No." Kalen forced himself to sit up, ignoring the fire in his chest. "We do this together." Somehow, they made it work. Vela flew the ship with one hand while supporting Kalen with the other, his injured. Fingers dancing over the engineering controls as they led their pursuers deeper into the singing graves. The harmonic frequencies grew stronger, reality itself seeming to bend and warp around them. The final hunter ship, pushed beyond its limits, finally succumbed to the nebula's fury. Its hull cracked like glass, spilling atmosphere and crew into the cosmic graveyard in the sudden silence that followed. Kalen and Vela found themselves alone among the ancient wrecks, the stellar wind's emergency power casting long shadows across the damaged bridge. "We did it," Kalen breathed, then winced as the movement pulled at his injuries. "Hush." Vela helped him to the medical bay, her touch infinitely gentle. "Let me tend to you properly." The medical bay was one of the ship's most sophisticated spaces, its biobeds able to adapt to any physiology. As Vela helped him onto the treatment surface, her hands shook slightly. I thought I was going to lose you, she admitted as the biobed scanners napped his injuries. When I saw that metal strike, you ... Hey. He caught her hand, squeezing gently. I'm tougher than I look. She laughed, but there were tears in her starlight eyes. You nearly died protecting me. Why? This time, he didn't hesitate. Because I love you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Vela stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. I am Zalari, she said finally. You are human. We are different species, different worlds, ... I don't care. She leaned down then, her lips brushing against his with gossamer softness. The kiss deepened as he responded, his good arm coming up to tangle in her silver hair. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard. The medical bay has privacy screens, she whispered against his ear. My injuries ... Her hand traced the uninjured side of his chest, sending fire through his veins. But this ... this cannot wait. As the biobed's healing field enveloped them and the ship's systems dimmed to give them privacy, Kalen discovered that love truly could transcend any barrier, even the vast gulf between the stars. Admiral Korath's flagship, the Dominion, hung in space like a steel dagger, its hull bristling with weapons. On the command bridge, the Admiral himself studied the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The Jalari ship has been tracked to the Kronos system, his aide reported. Intelligence suggests they're investigating the ruins of their former colony world. Perfect. Korath's scarred face twisted into a smile. They're looking for answers about their people's fate. I'll be happy to provide them personally. Aboard the Stellar Wind, Kalen and Vela worked side by side in the ship's intelligence center, sorting through recovered data files from the destroyed Zalari worlds. 3 weeks had passed since their encounter in the Singing Graves, and their relationship had deepened into something that transcended mere attraction. They moved together with the synchronicity of longtime partners, anticipating each other's needs without words. Here, Vela said, highlighting a section of encrypted text, communication logs from the Hegemony Advance Fleet. They're discussing something called Project Cleansing. Kalen leaned closer, his hand resting naturally on her shoulder as he studied the data. Her presence had become as essential to him as breathing, and he could tell she felt the same. Even the ship seemed to respond to their bond, its systems more efficient and responsive than ever before. Listen to this, he said, pulling up an audio file. The Zalari refuse final surrender terms. Admiral Korath is authorized to implement total extinction protocols. No survivors, no witnesses. Let their end serve as an example to any who would resist the hegemony's expansion. Vela's hand clenched into a fist. Korath, he was the one who led the final assault on our homeworld. I watched him burn our cities from orbit. Before Kalen could respond, proximity alarms began wailing. The tactical display lit up with red markers, an entire battle group emerging from hyperspace. 12 ships, Kalen reported grimly, including a Dreadnought-class flagship. The Dominion, Vela breathed, Korath's personal vessel. A communication channel opened, filling the bridge with the Admiral's cultured voice. Commander Soren, I must say, you've led us quite a chase, but now it's time to end this game. Korath. Vela's voice was ice. I should have killed you during the war. Yes, you should have. But you Zalari always were too honorable for your own good. Surrender now, and I promise your human pet will die quickly. Kalen and Vale exchanged a look of perfect understanding. They'd known this confrontation was inevitable from the moment they'd started their investigation. But they wouldn't face it as prey. Counter-proposal, Vela said calmly. Meet us in single combat. Your flagship against mine. Winner takes all. Korath's laughter echoed through the bridge. One crippled warship against the pride of the hegemony. Fleet, you've grown desperate, alien. Afraid? Kalen interjected. I thought hegemony admirals were supposed to be warriors, not cowards who hide behind overwhelming odds. The laughter stopped abruptly. Very well. But when I break your ship and capture you both, you'll have ample time to regret your insolence before I execute you. The battle lines were drawn, the stellar wind against the Dominion, while the rest of the hegemony fleet held back to watch. The duel. As the two ships maneuvered for position, Kalen and Vela worked with seamless coordination, their bond allowing them to function as a perfect team. Weapons charged, Kalen reported. All systems optimal. The ship is ready, Vela added, her hand resting on the neural interface that connected her directly to the stellar wind's consciousness. She thirsts for vengeance. The Dominion opened fire first, its massive guns hurling destruction across space. But the stellar wind danced between the energy beams like a living thing, its organic hull plates shifting to deflect what it couldn't avoid. Impossible, Korath's voice crackled over the comb. No ship is that maneuverable. You never understood us? Vela replied, her fingers flying over her controls as she brought their own weapons to bear. We don't just command our ships, we become them. The stellar wind's response was devastating. Ancient Zelari weapons, powered by the ship's renewed vitality, carved through the Dominion's shields like paper. But Korath's flagship was a formidable opponent, its armor absorbing punishment that would have destroyed lesser vessels. He's trying to close with us, Kalen observed as the Dominion changed course, probably planning to board. Let him come. Vela's smile was predatory. I have a surprise waiting. The two ships grappled in the darkness, their hulls grinding together as boarding pods launched from the Dominion's flanks. But as hegemony Marines cut through the stellar wind's hull, they found themselves facing not just defenders, but the ship itself. Corridors sealed around intruders, atmosphere vented selectively, and the very walls seemed to fight against the invaders. Meanwhile, Kalen and Vela made their own boarding run, using a concealed docking port to slip aboard the Dominion undetected. They moved through the enemy ship like ghosts, Vela's warrior training and Kalen's technical knowledge combining to devastating effect. They found Korath on his command bridge, frantically trying to coordinate the battle as his own ship turned against him. You, he snarled, drawing a plasma pistol. This ends now. Yes, Vela agreed, her own weapon appearing in her hand with fluid grace. It does. The duel was brief but vicious. Korath was skilled, but he fought with hatred and arrogance. Vela fought with the memory of her people's sacrifice, guided by love and tempered by wisdom. When her blade found his heart, his final expression was one of disbelief. For my people, she whispered as he fell, the hegemony fleet, leaderless, and shocked by their admiral's defeat, withdrew rather than face the apparently indestructible Zelari warship. As the stellar wind limped away from the battlefield, Kalen and Vela stood together on the observation deck, watching the stars wheel. Bye. It's over, he said softly. No. She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. It's beginning. We have the data now, proof of the hegemony's genocide. The galaxy will know what they did to my people. And after? She was quiet for a long moment. I am the last of my kind, Kalen. The burden of preserving Zelari culture, of ensuring we're remembered, falls to me. But I cannot do it alone. He turned to face her, seeing the future reflected in her starlight eyes. You won't be alone? Not ever. Their kiss was tender, full of promise and hope. Around them, the stellar wind hummed with contentment, its ancient consciousness embracing both its guardian commander and the human who had become her bondmate. 6 months later, on a world at the galaxy's edge, they established their new home. The settlement grew slowly refugees, outcasts, and idealists drawn by stories of the human Kanzilari who had built something beautiful from the ashes of war. Children played in gardens tended by both human and alien hands, while their parents worked to create a society based on understanding rather than fear. In the evening, Kalen and Vela would walk to the hill where they'd built their home, the stellar wind resting nearby like a protective guardian. They would watch the sunset paint the sky in familiar colors and plan for tomorrow, for the years ahead, for the family they hoped to raise together. They had found something rare in the darkness between stars, not just love, but hope for a future where difference was celebrated rather than feared. And in the whispered songs the wind carried across their world, some swore they could hear the voices of the Zelari, singing their approval of the empire their last daughter had built from nothing more than courage, love, and the dream of something better. The stellar wind, ancient and wise, settled deeper into the soil of their new world, its roots intertwining with the planet's own living systems. It had found its final harbor at last, guardian to a love that would echo through the generations to come.